Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Captain's Chat. My name is Joe Delagrave. I'm one of the captains here at USAWR. And today I'm joined by Jason Regier. Super excited to be joined by him. He's a former captain of the Rio 2016 Paralympic silver medalist and won gold in Beijing, won bronze in London, 3 world championships, now the head coach for the Denmark National Wheelchair Rugby team. And so just excited to pick his brain. He was a great friend and teammate. And captain when I was on the team before as well. And so just excited to be able to pick his brain a little bit and talk to him about all things rugby, being a dad, being a husband, yelling at his players, being a coach, all that good stuff. So welcome, Jason. How you doing, man?
I'm well, Big Joe. How are you?
Hey, not too bad. Just getting through this like everyone and figuring it out. And obviously the coronavirus wasn't killed by heat, so we're all figuring it out still.
It is true.
Yeah. How are you and Angela doing?
We're good. On the work front, we were both fortunate that we kind of worked from home when we weren't traveling, so that was great. To be honest, the hardest piece was having kids home for 3 months while you're trying to work full time. It's like, I've got a 4.5-year-old that is quite spirited, a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had, at the time, he was 8 months old, teething, not sleeping. So Angela's not sleeping. This little one's clingy to her. The other one wants her time, and then she's got to get on a call. And so Dad's playing some good chair position to keep the kids out of the way.
That's a tough age for this to throw in at. And it's one of those things too, as parents, you're like, for us, we got a couple in school and they're like, here, do some homeschool with them too. And we're like, we're not teachers at all.
No.
Yeah. We can be parents, and we'll teach a lot of ed, and get them in the kitchen, do some home and economics with folding their laundry. But yeah.
It's tough. You go, what do you do with them? You don't want to put them in front of the TV. And like you said, your kids are doing online learning. So it's like, you don't want them on the screen another 2-4 hours. So it's a real deal. And you got 3 of them. So I won't complain too much. You make them look easy.
Yeah. Well, we all got our own thing for sure. But yeah, so I'm sure we can banter about that all day long about being dads and how tough our job is, and we just
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But I'm sure Angela and April is gonna come back and smack us upside the head and be like,
might have some comments for us there about the whole issue.
They might have a little constructive criticism for us for sure.
Exactly.
Well, more on top of that, like not only, you're doing the working from home and the husband, the father role, also, head coach of Denmark, trying to figure it all out, and it's all at home. And so you're trying to put up boundaries. And like, what's that been like for you? Have you guys established some structure, some chaotic structure? How's that been?
It's, definitely, it was trying to find out. Angela does some training and a lot of education. So for her, obviously it cut the conferences and different things, but she was doing a lot of meetings like we all have online, doing conferences, teaching, training. So the first was just trying to get her covered so she could continue what she's doing.
Yeah.
The beauty of being an athlete coach, we have some flexibility as when we train, when meetings are. And so it was, it was hard. It was just like this. We forget it was only 4.5 months ago, but it was kind of like, I think, Paralympics going to happen. And then 2 days later, you're like, I don't know if it may be delayed. And then you go, it's not going to happen. It just, the rapidness. Because we've had this before with whether it's Ebola or other virus out there. And you're like, okay, we've heard the world's going to end and it's going to get out there, but this one hit. And it just took the world by storm. And so before, where you're kind of optimistic, won't be a problem. It was basically, if you haven't traveled to China, you're okay. But then it went from that to lockdown, which was like surreal. I mean, you're like, are the zombies next? What's going on here? It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, I joked about it too. Like the apocalypse came, and all people had to do is like stay inside to stay safe, and we couldn't handle that one. So it's like, I don't think we can handle zombies. There's no way. I mean, we've all watched The Walking Dead, but I don't think we're ready for it. But another thing came up to my head with that is with that postponement piece.
Yeah.
And you getting Denmark ready. This is the first time they've been in the Paralympics for wheelchair rugby. So not that you needed another accomplishment. I don't think you have room for them all, but like, but we're the guy. I mean, we were devastated. Obviously, you're almost there, and you know how it is as an athlete, and then as a coach, you're getting the team prepared. It's on the home stretch, and how are the guys? Did the guys handle it well? And
our guys and gal. We've got
Sophia. Yeah. Sorry, I say guys in a non-gendered. Sorry, don't beat me up, Sophia.
No, I think it is kind of devastating because you've worked so hard for it. You're, like you said, for us, that was the home stretch because we were just about to start camps, tournaments, and it was just going to be a blur. Right now, you'd be in camp, I would be over there, and then we're going to go spend 3 weeks to a month in Japan, and just huge letdown. You go through these things, and it was really interesting. When COVID hit, I recognized a couple weeks in, I said, the isolation, that piece, and then the uncertainty, I was like, this is spinal cord injury 101. This is just like when you get hurt and you go, I don't know what my life looks like. I'm here today. I have no idea what's going to happen. I don't know where we can go, but all of a sudden the world was feeling that. So that was an interesting piece to go through. But the team, I think they adjusted. The biggest thing was nobody wanted to hear Tokyo's canceled.
Right.
And for them to go, it's going to be postponed. We're going to go for it in a year. Great. You let that sink in. It's a huge letdown. But at the same time, you go, okay, we still have an opportunity to go to the Paralympics. So I think people adjusted quite quickly, but then when you're in that revved up mode and then you go to, you've got to stay home and it's tough training. It's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And then I think that was the hard piece. What do you do with your mind? What do you do with your time? Some, unlike us, Joe, had the luxury of being bored. They watched all the Netflix in the world. And then you've got others who are juggling jobs, kids, family, other things. And just like you're dealing with trying to keep your head above water. So crazy.
Yeah, no, that's great perspective there. And I think, with that, it's I just talk about pausing and recalibrating and going, okay, like you need that time to figure it out. Even with the spinal cord injury 101 stuff, it's like that time to really go, what is all this? What are we supposed to do? And that time is important before you can pivot and go in that direction of and make a new plan. But as you're making that new plan, what's the virtual world been like with trying to coach from a different country, and you're not going anywhere, but they're not going anywhere, and this how's that been?
The coaching piece hasn't been too terrible. Obviously, we put the pause on it, but when you look at it and say everything goes well, we have Tokyo next year, same time in August, then what that did is it just condensed that cycle. And you've been through the Paralympic cycle, and the Paralympics usually you go through and it's physically and mentally exhausting.
Yeah.
And as an athlete, you need time off. You need months off to just go, let me get over this. Let me see my family. Let me recoup. But so that didn't happen. But when it does happen next year, then you go, you have that, but qualifications for Worlds could be anywhere from 3 months to 5 months right after. So there's no letdown in training. And then you've got Worlds that following year. So it's just it's a blitz of time where you go, it's going to be an intense, basically year and a half where you're just going full gas all the time. So realizing that's what we're looking at is a little tougher. I mean, we are so fortunate with technology. I can't imagine my job, not only now, but before technology, just trying to communicate with athletes, the team, stay on top of things. So we've been able to do that. The hard part, and I don't know that it's changed as much with COVID, but as an athlete and coaching and everything you do, that 4/5 of what you do is away from camp.
Yeah.
It's away from the team. It's away from the tournaments. So it's always about those habits and the discipline to do it when you're away. Now, extra hard when you don't get to see the team at all. Extra hard when you can't get in the gym and you've got to revamp how you're training and those things. But it is an extension of the discipline of working alone.
Yeah. It's. I was thinking about that, and usually you go, okay, like, it's honor system and you're checking in, you got training laws, whatever. But then now that you don't get to see anyone, you don't get the eye test or the competitive side. So you go to a camp and you're like, I wasn't very good. I need to like change this to this. Or you go to camp, you're like, you know what? I'm pushing pretty well. Yeah. You get that eye test and then, or you can say, hey, you talk to this guy and be like, hey, you're sucking eggs. Like, it was bad. Let's figure something out here. You're not training. So the eye test is gone. So that's, I think, makes it a little interesting. And then you got some countries opening back up, possibly some half open and not open. And you see that, and we're texting and going like, well, this sucks. We want to be back, and so maybe there's some added motivation there from seeing other countries start to train and going, okay, this next 5 months matter as far as making sure that you're in shape. So in January, you're not going to camp and you got guys that are injured, or you got guys that are falling off because they haven't been training for 6 months. But it's crazy. It's crazy.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, have goals changed or perspective changed at all through this? As you're looking at it,
I think they have to. You have to adjust.
Yeah.
The goals are probably your big goals of getting to the Paralympics and what you want to do there are usually the same, but you just go, I think the way anybody look at it, you go, how can this be an advantage? And you go, it's a major disruption. You and I have seen Olympic, Paralympic athletes go, I can't do it in a year. My dream's over. Yeah. And that breaks my heart for whatever their situation is. Fortunately, in our sport, it seems like people are like, great, I've got it. I'm still in and I can still do it. And they adjust. But how do you make it an advantage? For the Denmark team, being a younger team and just more time, having younger players, time to get them up to speed. USA has some players just like that as well. It's a huge advantage for them, right? Yeah. And then for veterans, captains like yourself, it's a challenge of it's to stay in that top high performance mode takes a lot of time, energy, especially when you have other commitments with work, family. Yeah. It's a different thing. So it's the beautiful dynamic of teams where it's to each individual and to apply it there. And then as a team, how do we look at it and adjust? But yeah, just like games, tournaments, everything, there's always those micro adjustments. And I think everybody's making them, and we'll have to continue to make them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, thankfully we're not, and I've talked to some individual athletes and they're just in a different boat. They're going like, am I going to be a 10th faster next year? And that's the difference between a gold, silver, or off the podium, where, we can be a 10th faster or maybe a 10th slower and your teammates pick you up, or, there's a lot more to our game than just the timing of it. And so it's a different animal, but
for those sports, like you've got a lot of track and field, swimming, which are so physically dependent. Mm-hmm. You go, what does qualifications look like? What's my training like? I mean, we're used to adapting and going, and, whether you go, well, I used to go to the gym, now I have to push outside. There are all those little adjustments that I think athletes are making. and it's not ideal, but yeah, some of these others, I mean, thank goodness our sport too. You guys qualified, Parapans, that was fun. I mean, gosh, you think the last qualifying tournament in Canada, they qualified, and it was like, get on the plane, and then the world shut down next week.
Exactly.
I mean, holy smokes, how just great for our sport that teams are set, everything is set, and we can all readjust now. But it is a total different ball game for other teams.
Can you imagine if that tournament didn't happen and it's like, all right, now what? I'm glad I'm not on the IWF board.
Yeah. You'd be like, okay, we got to get this qualifier in, and you got to stay on ready alert for the next, 8 months was going. And it's just, crazy that amount of stress.
Absolutely. Well, man, let's shift a little bit. You've been in this community a long time. Part of the show is just trying to bring this community together, the rugby community. Maybe if you maximize it out a little bit, that adaptive community. But and you've accomplished more in this sport than most of us dream of. I mean, it's been an amazing career, and you know that. And then now as a coach, getting to instill that in your players, but. Kind of what I would like to just learn a little bit about is like taking it back to when it first started and what that was like as, the new you with the spinal cord injury and figuring out life at a pretty young age. But like, what was that like starting out, and how was that community involvement important in kind of getting to you where you are today?
Yeah. Well, we roll back time, and I think the wheel had just been invented the year before. So that goes, we go back almost 24 years. And I saw a tournament at Craig Hospital when I was doing rehab, and the picture's still in my mind. I rolled out, saw the court. I see a player catch a ball. He gets hit on the front end, smashes into the ground onto his face, and then everybody cheers. And I'm like, okay, these guys are idiots. I mean, what is this?
And is this back in the Craig Hospital, like little gym?
Oh yeah.
Usually, I remember going to a tournament there, and like they've got hospital beds lined up on the sides. I'm going, this is insane. Someone's gonna die. What is going on here?
Bring the patients down, show them. It's like if somebody goes off the court, you're right. Somebody might need to go to the emergency room. So it was back in the day. But I met Brad Mickelson, who he was the coach and player. I mean, he was the founder in the U.S. for us. He was instrumental in the game. And Brad, I remember the very first practice I had, he allowed me to get in his chair. The other chair he wanted me to use didn't even have a picker on it, Joe. I mean, this was an everyday chair, right? And he goes, this thing is awesome. So he's like trying to sell me how awesome the everyday chair is. It's like, that chair has been the world. So I'm like, no, I can see by even just coming in, that's not even a rugby chair. But he put me in his chair, and the words still stick with me. He goes, some people have made a life out of this. Yeah. And some people have gone on, played for their country and traveled and gone around the world. And so those early impressions were, I met guys like him who were living on their own for 15, 20 years. And that just baffled my mind. Because at the time I needed help with 80% of everything. So it was early days, and I was just like, let's see if I get some exercise. And they bring you in, they go, here's the new guy, just got out of rehab, don't hit him. So that's like putting a big target on your back. And
right, exactly. Let's see what this guy can do.
Yeah, the big boys that came and hit me full speed a couple times, and we didn't fall over, and we lived, and it was kind of like, okay. But honestly, I just practiced that first year. Yeah, the team was nuts. They had crazy guys. Literally, they were crazy, and just the antics from back in the day. I was just like, I don't know if I want to be a part of this. Yeah. But then I came out, and a couple years into it, and your arms are coming back a little bit. You started pushing. You're no longer the rehab case. You're starting to live, and it was really just getting out there. The community for new athletes is amazing. Yeah. I mean, just to show the ropes of, yes, life is possible. You can work, you can play the sport, you can travel, you can be very independent. Those things are there. And so those psychological, social aspects of getting back to life, I mean, there's been no bigger impact in my life than rugby. So, yeah, crazy guys. There's Eric Newby. Speaking of leader of the pack, he's kept the tradition alive for the last few decades here.
Yeah.
So yeah, those early years are formative, and it kind of goes to my very first year playing. I played 5 tournaments, and got invited to a USA development team in '99, and that really kind of set in my mind, you know, I wanted to do this. I wanted to see if I could make Paralympics 2004. I thought it would take me 5 years, and that started my early years, which I called chasing Eddie Crouch, which Eddie Crouch, in my mind, probably the best .5 the U.S. has ever had.
Yeah.
His playing career, what he did club side, what he did internationally. And I was fortunate to have him as a friend and a mentor early on.
Yeah.
But he was head and shoulders above everybody at that time. And so, you know, he was what I was aiming for. And that starts the long process of trying to learn the game. Cause you first you got to get in at practice. Right. And then you go, okay, you need to probably be one of the top players on, my boys. They got nothing else going on, but harass me here.
Exactly. Come on. It's real life around here.
Yeah.
Speaking of Frenchie's
Frenchie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of kids,
the Sausage King of Houston, he's on. Here we go. Yeah. I see. I don't even know where I went. They got me.
Exactly. But anyways, you're chasing Eddie Crouch.
Yeah.
2004. Yeah.
And so it's that you go from trying to play on your team to your team. You need to compete at a high level. There's a lot of levels to the international level, and the U.S. Same for you when you started, was one of the best teams in the world.
Yeah.
So how do you go from being a good player to one of the best in the world without getting experience? So you have to get yourself to a place where you're a better player than some of the best players in the world without having that international experience. So it's quite a journey and quite a jump to make that. And it took me almost 10 years till I did it.
How many times did you get cut?
I got cut probably 3-4 times.
Yeah.
And 2004 was the goal, and I didn't make it, and they ended up not taking any .5s. So
yeah, that was the year they did what was it, 3s, 2s, and 1s or something like that, or they went that route. They didn't have any 2 5s. They didn't know what Will Grew would be at that time. They didn't have any 3 5s. Yeah,
with 3 5s are kind of the lifeline for us .5s out there.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't understand, like when they're watching, they go, well, certain players are going to be married to other players just based on the math and what lineups play well. But that's a great question here. What specifically did you learn from Eddie? And I could probably speak on that, but I'll let you do that. And
Eddie for me, I mean, when you ask around and talking with Brad, I was like, well, what .5s are out there? And Eddie at the time was the only .5 I really knew that was fully independent too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a monumental jump for low pointers to go from being so dependent to learning how to do a transfer, to go to a tournament on your own. I mean,
Jay, I remember, because he was in the Heartland, and I remember my first tournament, one of my first tournaments, and we're in the hotel, and I see this, Eddie's just, out there, and he rolls in there, and I'm like, this guy is disabled. Like he's not going to be able to. He goes up there, makes his own bowl of oatmeal, shoves it in the microwave. He's ripping the thing. I'm like, and I went back to my hotel room and looked in the mirror, and I'm like, I am pathetic. Like I have so much more function than this guy, and I can't do a thing.
Yeah. And it was that old school mentality that he brought to the court. I mean, when you watched him, he had a very strong push. .5s, low pointers, usually you get what I call kind of that huge push, a push for Eddie and I might be one push where somebody that backhand pushes is 2 or 3. They're going for quick repetition, those things. So his style fit, but he was absolutely, he was just one of the best players out there. You could just watch his play. He was so strong. Everybody trusted him. So it was just watching that. But I learned early on too that I couldn't be Eddie Crouch, right?
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
It's one of those things where Eddie and his strengths and what he brought to the game, I could bring some of that and I could always learn, but I had to steal from other players.
Yes.
My other mentors in the low point ranks were Norm Liduck and Scott Hogsett, both ones who very different players, but bring, just taught me different things of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so you learn quick as an athlete, artist, whatever you're out there, you got to steal from everybody. And you try and find out kind of what's your unique piece. And it goes back to my old sports days when I played soccer and high school, college there. I was a decent communicator. And that was one of the things that I could try and bring. Scott he's excellent. That's one of his big qualities is he will bark orders out there, and get all 4 playing together. And when things worked well for me, that was a big piece of what was going well.
Yeah. Man, that's good. That's a good piece though, where you go at some point you've got to figure out that, you can take from other people, steal from other people, figure out what they're doing, but then staying true to who you are as well. And I know I learned that coming in, you've got all these 2s and I'm like, gosh, this one's better and this one's better that way. That one's better this way. This one's better that way. And all, and then you got Derek, who's like he's a circus monkey out there just doing everything. And I'm like, how, and go, okay, I'm big. Okay. I can, learning from Scott as well. And from you, it's like, I can talk, like, especially when I'm way slower than all these guys that are flying. And so, and then going like at some point though, you've got to go, okay, who am I personality wise? Am I going to yell as much as Scott? But I can still communicate my own way or whatever it be. But that's a good point. Absolutely. So throughout your athletic and professional career, leadership has been there for you. It's been something that you've been known for. And what do you think are some of like those top leadership qualities that are important? What are you looking for in players that you coach now? And what were you trying to do when you led US?
Yeah. Huge topic in context of our sport. I think as a leader, first, you've got to lead by your actions, right? And some people, they were players like Eddie. He was a leader. He wasn't a big talkative guy, but you could see by what he was doing, he would lead that way. Old 0.5 from Canada, Daniel Paraday. I'm butchering his name. Daniel. But I don't think I ever heard the guy say 2 words, but he was a rock for Canada in those early years. But for me, a leader, that status is kind of given to you by your players, your coaches, that they look to you. So I think you got to lead by your actions. I think you need to put other people in the team in front of you, before you, which, we play a team sport, which has that dynamic, but we would all be lying if we didn't say we had an ego and we had our own goals and we were trying to do things.
Yeah.
How do you fit that together when you're in competition with all these 2s? They may be your teammate on this line, but then they may be your competition to get on the team. It's a really weird dynamic, and you've got to be above that. And I think it's kind of around what's best for the team. And so there's a lot of different ways, but you can lead by playing. The other pieces that came to mind, Rio, where Jeff Butler and I would split a lot of time, and my job in that situation is to support Jeff, to get him playing the best he can, because he's on our team. Yeah. Now I could look at it and go, well, that's my time. He's taking my time. Well, that's not my decision. That's coach's decision. Yeah. But my decision to try and help Jeff and the teammates that are out there, that's what it's about. It's it's sometimes those intangibles. You'll see great leaders and you're like, well, you know, Joe or Jason, they didn't play much in that game, but by them communicating to their team when they're coming over, running lines, I mean, you just see it. You make the other players better.
Yeah.
You and I have been blessed. We both have played with Chuck Aoki, and he's the top player for the U.S. And one of the things I've always loved about Chuck is that whatever line he's on, whatever team he's on, he's going to make them better. If Chuck's on the sideline, he's going to be barking orders, helping people, making sure, you know, they're playing at the level they should. So there's so many aspects of that leadership piece. And you know this, so much of it, people watch a game and they watch what's on the court, but then, you know, the other 90% is off the court and what goes on at practice and setting those expectations and having those talks with that guy that's not up to speed at camp. All those pieces, that's the leadership. You know, you see it in sports all the time where you're like, well, that leader didn't play, but you'll hear the players say, but they've done so much. They've helped me so much by everything else they do. So it's taking that big picture and how do I help the team and bring some of that in. Yeah.
I mean, my challenge for listeners would be, you know, you can find it on YouTube. It was just played again here on NBCSN, and then Paralympics played it as well. And you watched the gold medal game, right? And so I think you played about 3 seconds in that game. Yeah. But like, watch the bench, and you know, it's fun to watch your. And I remember when I watched it, but and you watch it again, and you're leading the entire time. I mean, you're animated, you're fired up. You know, I'm sure Gumby is pissed because you got in his way a couple times. The camera, you know, Gumby likes the camera. Just kidding, G. But no, like, I think it's you see that and you go, I think you can tell a lot about leadership by watching the bench. Yeah. What are guys doing when they get taken off? Are they pouting, or are they involved in the game? What are guys doing when they're not getting called? Yeah. Are they pouting, or are they in the game, making their teammates better? And you've certainly done that for sure. Of course, Newbie has even more great things to say. What was it like to play with the threat of dinosaur attacks? Is what Newbie said.
Dinosaur attacks. Can you translate for me, Joe? What
he's calling you old.
Oh,
he's calling you old. That's
yeah. It's a beautiful thing when old guys beat up on the young guys, and you know. They still got nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the movement has grown a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been around the sport for a long time. You've been around Paralympics for a long time, and like, what do you think has been the biggest change with the Paralympic movement? You know, I know London was a big one for launching that. I think Tokyo will be huge as well. But what do you think the biggest change has been for the Paralympic movement and how it's grown?
You know, I think in the U.S. we've got some ways to grow, but in the world it has grown. It's people around the world now see it as sport. And I think one of the best things about the Paralympic movement, just getting elite athletes out there and then breaking down some of those notions around disability. Ultimately, I mean, we are so fortunate to be where we are and do what we do. And there's a lot of people with disabilities, not only disabilities, just other challenges in life. And just like the Olympics, you have amazing stories. And everybody in the Paralympics has an amazing story. Not only have they, whether they're born from birth and dealing with disability challenges, or like you and I, we've had spinal cord injuries halfway through our life.
Yeah.
But I think it's getting to be that legitimizing the sport.
Yeah.
I've always said, you know, if you watch wheelchair rugby and you don't want to watch it because it's an entertaining game, then fine. We'll go off in our little gym and we'll go play by ourselves, and you don't have to see it.
Right.
You know, Rio, London, where you've got packed stadiums, 12 to 15,000. People just going mad, going, where do I watch this all the time? I mean, there's been a lot of studies. Mike Conningham's done studies, I think, from past world championships that show people come to watch it. They don't know anybody that plays it. They don't know anybody that's in a wheelchair like it, and they love it, and they want more of it. So I think, you know, we are definitely biased, but I think wheelchair rugby is one of the coolest sports in the Paralympics. I mean, you've got rugby, you've got basketball, and then you have the huge kind of Olympic sports of track and swimming, which have so many events and different things. But it's such it's one of the three unique sports. So it's such a draw. And so that's my hope, is that it just continues to grow and be ambassadors to the world for sport, for elite athleticism, you know, where the Olympic movement was back in the 80s. And I think it has just an amazing story. It has amazing sports to share. Everything about it is great. And so it's a matter of breaking through, though. I mean, US, you look at it, and my take on it is, if the US, by the time the Paralympics come back to LA, if it's not on level with the Olympics, and I mean media, I mean everything, sponsorship levels for athletes, those things, then I don't know that it'll ever hit in the US. It's just it's so hard. To take a little pivot, Joe, like when you look at sports and COVID, I mean, the whole sports world got stopped. Pro athletes, who cares? Right. You know, and it just put this whole idea of sport in perspective. I mean, we love it. It's been a part of our life, but you just go, wow, how important is it really? I mean, the doctors, the medical people, everybody, you just like, there are a lot more critical things going on here. But when you go back to the sport, I mean, there's just so many different things competing for people's attention. But I believe the Paralympics is absolutely worthwhile. And the hardest piece, if people can understand the sports and understand the context of disability, right? You and I talked about it before off camera, and we go, if somebody's watching this in live, they're like, hey, there's two talking heads. They're talking about playing rugby, all this stuff. They don't see the 90% paralysis in the body and the wheelchair and understand everything that's going on. But I've always gone, if people get a little bit of that context and can see the athleticism that is there in the Paralympics, I think people's mind would be absolutely blown. You know, there's a great piece ESPN did, I forget the segment, but on Tatiana McFadden, and it was on her doing the marathons, and they did some scientific studies. Was a amazing piece just to break down. I
remember that. The sports science of it or whatever.
This is like,
it's insane. And they did that with wheelchair basketball players as well. Like how it's harder to shoot a basketball from a chair and all that stuff. And I think like the one word that popped out that was purpose. And, you know, with everyone's like, oh, we miss sports and everything. But like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like people are trying to feed their families and figure out jobs and whatever. But then like, I think where Paralympics has always had an edge that hasn't really been like seen enough is the human interest side. Like Olympians, you know, coverage is they're trying to manufacture the human interest story because that's what people want. And then with Paralympics, it's like you can't make up half these stories. You go, this is just it's incredible.
You just go like, you know, the story totally paralyzed, couldn't do anything. You know, 10 years to rebuild your life. I mean, it's crazy. I will. There was one Olympic story that really, it grabbed me because I was doing a talk for a university and I pulled a video of Michael Phelps. And it was a couple videos of him and the mental health issues that he's had. And my God, I mean, he is, I mean, he's one of the most well-known, well-recognized medals there has ever been as an Olympian. And the courage for him to share some of that was just, you know, it was awesome. I mean, it had me in tears. Just him talking about it here. You have the most decorated Olympian we've ever had. and he's almost suicidal because of mental health issues.
Yeah.
And I was just, for him to share that and those struggles to continue to make a difference out there. I mean, that's what people don't understand. They may look at the Olympics, even Paralympics, and go, "Oh, Joe's got it so good. He's got 3 kids, this perfect little family, and he gets to travel the world, and it must just be amazing." No, it's hard as hell.
Yeah.
And, it's just like, that's not the reality. Life is tough. Paralympics has the adversity piece to it that is just built into disabilities and playing at an elite level that I think people can identify with. They go, this is real. They identify with that struggle, but also the pursuit to greatness, all those things. It does have a lot to offer. So it'll be interesting how this whole dynamic shifted and just the general Paralympic movement. I mean, I truly hope that Olympics, Paralympics, that it keeps on, because we need some things to unite the world.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I think, like maybe minimize, like just taking a little bit closer approach is our rugby community and how they can help further this movement. And honestly, I think if I'm we just talked about being vulnerable and like talking about real stuff. I think honestly, there's, our community needs to be stronger together.
Yeah.
There's a lot of infighting. There's a lot of like, we're rubbernecking each other, or this guy's done this, and you're measuring up and going, how can we come together? I was thinking about the other day, and I go, like, we don't even support our own community enough to where so like if someone gets, oh, wow, someone just got on, whatever, like, Aoki's getting, massive publicity, and it's awesome. And you go like, let's overshare this thing. And it just doesn't happen because people are going, well, I don't get it. And this guy doesn't get it. And this guy doesn't get it. And like, but the realization is, if this guy is getting this exposure and we overshare him, and I'm not just saying Aoki, it could be an article from Jeff Butler, it could be, whatever it would be, or people that aren't on the national team and they're getting exposure because they're on the military Invictus team, whatever it would be. And you're going, how can we overshare this thing? Or it could be from a different country, it could be Denmark people, how can we come together as a community to kind of push this thing forward as we head towards LA, which I agree with you is 100% like a bullseye on the movement.
Yeah, I think people got to look at it. It's a hard piece online because you can get very shallow and go, everybody wants to get theirs, or they want to take a jab at somebody. But it's this idea of, the best thing that analogy would be the family, right? Joe, you've got 3 kids. I've got 2, and you go, because you've got my first son, and then we just added another one this year. It doesn't mean that I have less love to go around, right? I have unlimited love for both of you. And it's same thing with this Paralympic movement and sharing. It's like, if I share a Joe Delagrave story about what he's done on the national team, that doesn't take away from the Denver Harlequins and their team. No, this is anything that you promote around the Paralympics, around these sports, helps the whole. And it doesn't take away from anything. I think, one of the hard pieces that I've seen around social media, things are so transparent. People hide behind it. I think it's a brutal time to be a celebrity and to be out there. I mean, people, there are folks that have their own challenges, but they're just looking to take down somebody else because that makes them feel good or whatever it is. That piece it blows my mind. But I think we need honest conversation. You brought up our wheelchair rugby community, and I don't think we have enough honest conversations around it. I know, in talking to some of the leaders in Team USA back when I was a player, and they're like, what's the focus? Should we just focus on the elite Team USA level? Should we work on grassroots level? Because ultimately that supports the sport. and we go, we've got to do all. I mean, if you don't support the new teams, getting new players and growth, then ultimately, things just drop off. But it's always, people see it as an either or, but it needs to be like both. It's this whole, we run into it. We've seen it in, racial justice. We've seen all these different things, and it goes down to this. This goes back 20 plus years. I remember it when I had an ethics class. It's this idea of us and them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, when I talk to you, I look at it and I'm like, that's Joe. That's us. That's Team USA. But I could also go, oh no, I'm Coach Denmark, Joe's enemy. He's bad. But no, that's not what it's about. It's not about making an us and them enemy. This is about all of us. Yeah. And it's that viewpoint. What's our viewpoint? Do you see, as somebody maybe disabled just starting out, do you see yourself as part of the Paralympic movement? Whether it's just to promote it, share it with your friends, family, or do you go, no, that's just for, the guys that are at the national team and whatever, they just think they're elite, and that doesn't mean anything to me. Yeah. I mean, are we building down, or we building this thing up, or are we breaking it down? What are we doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that's good stuff right there. I got one more question before we wrap up. I know we could probably talk for hours, and I like this question: what failure during your career molded you the most? And I think it's just so important. And for me, 2016 was one of those years where I thought, man, I was the biggest failure ever, but ended up making a choice to learn from it, figure out how I could get better. And it honestly changed my outlook on my rugby career, and then my personal life and professional life, and what that looked like. But what's failure done for you, as far as maybe what failure, or what example did you bring up?
Failure is a challenging word. it's a big one. Where do you label it like that? Yeah. But I understand the essence. And
the essence, yeah. Well, I think there's a difference between being a failure and failing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Because it's like you got back up and you made the team again, and you're captain leading the team. You could have gone, I got cut. That's done. I don't want to go. But failures for me, some of the defining moments, two stick out. And it was probably 2000, either late 2002 or 2003, where we were at tryouts, and I hadn't passed Eddie Crouch. Eddie Crouch was still by far the best 0.5 there, and had a conversation with Cliff Chung, and I just got cut.
Yeah.
And Cliff, dynamic player, very back in the day. And he said to me, he's like, Eddie Crouch is going to retire, and, you'll have an opportunity. And I was just like, well, I don't want Eddie to retire. I would like to be good enough that I could actually beat Eddie Crouch at tryouts and make it on that merit, instead of him retiring saying, I'll allow somebody else.
Yeah.
And so being cut all those times, you keep going. I just graduated. I was finishing up grad school, and I was like, do I go to work full time? And that's when I buckled down. I said, no, I'll start training 2-a-days like I did going to college, and give it one last go to see if I can make this full team.
Yeah.
Because it meant that much. So that was one area. The other definitely was London.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate. The team, the time that I played there, I had wanted to be at 2 Paralympics, 2 World Championships. And if we wouldn't have lost that semifinal to Canada, and depending how we would have done the gold medal match, I could have basically said I went undefeated in my international career.
Yeah.
Which would have been great. And I don't know if I would have retired then. That was kind of the idea.
Yeah.
That loss, and this idea of loss, and just how much we have invested in the sport, and it's invested in our identity and who we are, it really challenged me, and it stuck with me for a good year. It ate away at me, and it was one of those things where it kind of redefined, reignited fire and reset me, but it also put things in perspective, and it's humbling, and you grow from it. You either go, well, it's the worst thing in the world and I just never want to talk about it again, or you go, hey, this is an opportunity to learn and to grow. And that's what it was.
Yeah. Wow. Well, gosh, what a great thing to end on. It's you started at 1999, you work your butt off for 5 years. There's failure. I think a lot of guys, and we've seen it, a lot of guys go, well, they play the blame game. They play the victim card. So this is someone else. I should be here. I should do it, and you press on. Eddie ends up retiring, but I'm sure at some point it would have been you're jumping over him, whatever it would be. But
he didn't retire, Joe.
And then, did you beat him out?
Well, 2006.
Okay.
And
2006.
Eddie's defense, he did have a little injury. He wasn't
gotcha
form, but
all right. Sorry to get the story wrong. Yeah, that's my
no, but I love Eddie.
Yeah. No, and then so let me rephrase.
Yeah.
You're charging after him for 6 years, and then you beat him out, and then you get to be kind of the ending. You get to be part of that 06, 08, 2010, should have been 2012, but that period in time where it was the most dominant team. I mean, I had Bill Regier on, and they had a run in 96, 98, 2002, 2000. That was huge too, but 06, 08, 2010, and the world's coming up and getting so much stronger. And gosh, it's pretty special to be a part of something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I think a match of a good career, or a marker, I should say, is that consistency. That was always one thing. And that's why I was hopeful to do multiple Paralympics, because people don't understand the full cycle to go through and to make the team, and then to actually go play the games and win the games and do all that. It's so exhausting.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate for 12 years to represent US, but I'd been training for 17, like you said, it was 5-6 years leading up till I could make the team. So it's, and it's how many times do we get up, because we've all been knocked down, whatever it be.
Yeah.
And I think the last thing is, what are you willing to sacrifice? Because everybody goes, well, yeah, I want to be on the national team. Well, yeah. What do you want to sacrifice to make that happen? Because you think we're just talking about that we just go play and they play on good teams and different things.
Yeah.
You're missing it.
Yeah.
You're missing the 3 to 5 hours Joe's training, leading up to big tournaments twice a day, those things, or let alone going to camps where you're doing 3 a days, or going for 10 days. It's grueling, and it's brutal. So be careful what you ask for, and know what you're asking for.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Well, man, hey, thank you so much. Thanks for dropping all those truth bombs and your words of wisdom, and I really appreciate it. I'm sure a lot of people do, and just thank you for what you've done for the sport and continue to do for the sport, and good luck to Denmark. Not too much luck, but good luck to you and the boys, and as you figure out this COVID thing, and we all hopefully get to see and compete against each other next year. But thanks, Jay. Appreciate it. As always, everyone, if you want to reach out, usawr.org for more information. Regier hasn't been on Twitter or on Instagram for like 5 years, it seems like, but at USAWR, at JDelagrave14, at JRegier7. He's on Twitter as well, at JRegier7. I'm at Joe Delagrave, and USAWCH Rugby over on Twitter. Find us out. And hang out with us. So we'll be back Tuesday at 11. Jay, thank you so much. This will be on Facebook for a while here, so you can listen to it if you didn't listen live. But thanks a lot, Jay. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day.